Okay, let's dive right in with a discussion about diatonic chords. That is, diatonic means chords that are in one key. That's the opposite of chromatic, where we have chords from different keys. Let's start with major, and then we'll go on to minor. And let's begin with building up all of these chords. I think that kind of gives a helpful theoretical background to some of this stuff. On the top, we have the C major scale here. Okay, that's nothing new or very exciting. And I have them numbered in their what we call scale degree, right? This is C is the first scale degree, the D is the second scale degree, third scale degree, fourth scale degree, all the way up to the B natural, which is the seventh scale degree. Seventh scale degree we also call the leading tone. Why is that? Because it leads back, well, on this page it doesn't, but it leads back to the tonic, the C in this case, the tonic of the scale. The leading tone is an extremely important concept as well as note inside of tonal harmony as it's used by classical composers. Now, if we just build triads off of all of these notes of the scale, we get all of the triads that you'll find in a major key. So that's what we have on the second line here. And we can also use this as a sort of review of Roman numeral analysis, because I've put the Roman numerals underneath each chord. And note that you get the Roman numerals basically from the scale degree. Why is this called the 1 chord? Or why do we use the 1 here? It's because it's the first scale degree and the chord's built off of the first scale degree. Why is it uppercase or say capital rather than small here, lowercase? It's because it's got a major third. This is a major triad. Okay, so here we have triads, and if we just build up our triads, a series of thirds, a pair of thirds, we get all of the diatonic triads that you find in a major key. Let's take a look at, in a major key, what kinds of triads we get. On the first scale degree, fourth scale degree, fifth scale degree, we get major chords. Then we get minor chords on the second, third, and sixth. And then we get a diminished triad. We get a minor third followed by a minor third. Note that a minor triad has a minor third on the bottom and a major third on top. Okay. Let's look at seventh chords. Well, what we do is we just add another third on top here. And again, we get well, more variety actually in terms of seventh chords. But the truth is you find most of these chords infrequently used in classical music. For instance, this 1-7, which is a major triad with a major seventh. We call major seventh. This chord you'll find used in sequences, which we'll talk about in week 3. Otherwise, you really don't find it. And where are our major seventh chords? Well, on the first scale degree, the 1 chord, and the 4 chord is also a major seventh chord. Then we get minor seventh chords. That is a minor triad and a minor seventh on 2, 3, and 6. Then we have 2 unique chords. This is the 5-7 chord, or what we'll call the dominant 7th chord. It's got this major triad, and it's got a minor 7th. Now this is interesting because this is unique. If you look at any of the other 6 chords in diatonic harmony with 7th chords, if you look at any of the other 6th, 7th chords, you see that they don't have this combination, that only the dominant 7th chord has the combination of having a major triad and a minor 7th. If we look at the diminished, this is a half diminished chord, 7 half diminished. We have a diminished triad and a minor 7th. So we call it a half diminished 7th chord. Okay, let's now compare that with the minor diatonic chords. Okay, well, before we had 1, 4, and 5 being major. Now we have 1 and 4 at least are minor. 5 should be minor, but the minor 5 in a minor key you see infrequently, very infrequently. Why is that? Because if this is a minor chord, it cannot function as a dominant chord. And the whole point of the 5 chord is to function as a dominant chord. I'll come back later to talk a bit more about what this, well, as we go along, it'll become clearer and clearer how important the idea of function is in classical music and in harmony. So this chord needs to function as a dominant. It has a role to play in the harmonic progression. If it's not major, we don't hear it. So we need it to be major. So we alter the third of this chord. Right? Rather than, if we look at the key signature, we should have a B flat, but we make it B natural. Okay, before, in major, our 3 and 6 chords were minor chords. Now they're major chords. And our 2 chord was minor. Now it's a diminished triad. Minor third, because we have the A flat here. Just like the 5 chord, which has the raised third, we have the raised third with the 7th chord. Now, you will find this lowered so that we get, in this case, it would be a B flat major chord. That does happen. We usually use that when we're trying to get out of minor. So we probably won't use it too much over the next 6 weeks. But it's frequently seen with the 7th chord here is frequently seen with this as raised. So we have a B natural rather than a B flat, so that it yields a 7 diminished triad. We look at the minor triads. Again, many of these we see infrequently. 4, 7 we'll see fairly frequently. 2, 7 we'll see. 2 diminished 7 we'll see frequently. 5, 7 we'll see frequently. And this one we'll see frequently. 1, 7 almost never. 3, 7 almost never. And 6, 7 probably you'd see, but it would be inside of a sequence of a sequential progression that used 7th chords. If you don't understand exactly what that means right now, it's okay. I'll talk about it in week 3. Okay, so the thing that I want to point out, okay, so again we see this is raised. A couple things here to point out. This is raised, and it's not just to make this sound like a dominant, but it also says something about how the dominant sounds like a dominant. Before, in the previous slide, I talked about the leading tone and how important the leading tone is. Notice that the only note we see altered in all of this, all of these chords is the leading tone. Here we need to have that leading tone. And that tells us something about how important a role, how important its role is in classical music. The other important thing to understand about all of these chords is this is pretty much it. These collections of chords that you see make up, I would say, at least 95% of diatonic harmony for certain that you're going to find in classical music. Now, some of you may come out of backgrounds in pop music and jazz music. And so you'd be saying, okay, so that's nice, I see all of this, but where's like the add 2, add 9, add 6, where are the 13th chords and 11th chords and things like that? Classical music doesn't really have them. So let's look at an example. Let me show you an example of what I mean. Here we have, if you're a jazzer, you look at this chord and you say, F13. We have F in the bass, and we get the 7th here, and we get major 3rd. That's a 10th there, yeah? So all these notes on the bottom say that it's a dominant chord, and it's an F dominant 7th chord. And then we add the 9th. We could add the 11th. I don't have it here, but it would be very common to add the 11th. And the 13th as well. Good, easy. It's an F13. But in classical music, that's not what we would call it. And this is an important thing to understand. Let's take a look at how a classical composer would actually look at this chord, because they look at it very differently. They'd say, okay, I see this F dominant 7th chord. That's fine. But these other notes, these are what we're going to call non-chord tones. They're not in the chord. So what we need to do is they add color and they sound nice where they are, but we need to resolve them to chord tones. And that's what's happening here. So this next chord we need to have, because the G is going to go up to the A and the D is going to go down to the C, and now we actually just have clearly the dominant 7th chord. This is very much how a classical composer would look at harmony. So it's important to understand that all the chords that I just showed you, those are the chords of classical music. There are going to be more chords I'll show you as we talk about chromaticism, but for diatonic music, that is music in one key, the chords that I show you, more or less is what you'll find.